Okay, greetings and salutations, everyone. Happy to be here on our week 6, our last Zoom class for this course, and it's been a great course. You have done a wonderful job in your discussion questions and responses and interacting with each other over the last 5 weeks. And I've looked at some of your initial posts so far this week, and you have not disappointed me. So very happy uh, to have worked with you over these last several weeks. And we're getting ready now to wrap it up. We only have today's Wednesday. We have the rest of today, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I put this in the announcements, and just as a reminder, not a warning or anything like that. Sunday night, as you probably well know, at midnight Central Standard Time, or Central Time, maybe daylight savings time, Central Time, the course is shut out. You cannot submit any more assignments. I lose a lot of access to the course. I just still have access to the grade book because I will be grading your papers and submitting the final grades hopefully by Tuesday or Wednesday of next week. So around this time next week, you should know the final grade that you earned in this course. And the grades are looking pretty good right now. As you well know, you can see your grades as you go along. So just kind of fair warning, I guess. I hate to say it like that, but just as a reminder, do be very cognizant of that. So trying to get a better screenshot here. Okay, so this week I'll give you a Bible verse in a little while so that you can get your extra credit. And this week we're going to we are looking at, in fact, what makes people attractive. The videos are fantastic. The one lecture is a little bit long, but he has good information in there, very timely and appropriate information. The video with Darren Brown is fantastic, and it's only 11 minutes, and you get a lot of impact from that 11-minute video. By the way, as an aside, Darren Brown is a phenomenal social psychologist. He has a pretty big following, especially in Great Britain. You can tell from his accent he's British. Excuse me. But he does a lot of funny things and to point out and prove how people can be influenced. So very important there to watch that video. And I took my tie off. So he's really fantastic, a lot of funny. And his information on this video is great, talking about what makes us attractive. He uses two different groups and shows them two videos, as if you haven't looked at it, of the same person saying the same thing, the same verbiage, but with different tone and different attitude, if you will. And the results are interesting and definitely noticeable in terms of how the females find this fella on the likable or attractiveness scale. So very good stuff. It's important, I think, to be aware if you're in college and you're studying social psychology, as we are here, that the traditional sort of common sense ideas of what makes people fall in love with each other and what makes them attractive is not necessarily what actually happens. The data does not support that. There's 7 billion people on the planet, and you would think you'd be able to find that one perfect match, but oftentimes it comes down to variables that you don't realize it comes down to. One of the variables that used to be very important was proximity. Typically, there was a period of time in this country and worldwide, certainly in America, that you could predict with some accuracy who a person was going to end up with based on where they lived and who all was close. You know, I don't know the exact statistics, but basically you could say you're going to marry someone within a 7-mile or 11-mile radius of your house. So yeah, you look for that perfect person, but you find that perfect person out of you know, at that time in the world was probably 5 billion or 6 billion people. Out of all the people in the world, you found the perfect person, just happened to be 6 blocks away. So now, why has that changed recently? Well, because of the internet and the online dating sites. So people, you know, put things in it. And the video that Darren Brown shows, it's interesting because he makes a very good case for how you present yourself determines how many people are going to be attracted to you, especially like for the online dating sites. So, you know, how you dress, what you say, how you say it really, that really does matter. So that has changed the way that people find their mates, because now they can go on Match.com or Christian Mingle or Farmers Only. There's more than I could even think of. Those are the ones I see from TV, and post their profile, and I guess they do videos and everything, I'm sure now, so you can find out someone's likes and how old they are and their history and their family and those kinds of things, and you can look all over there. So it might be somebody near your house, or it might be somebody far away. Logistics still does play a part in it, because if you are in Florida and you find someone on Match.com that lives in Seattle that you just think is perfect, well, you know what, that could be, but it could present some problems in as much as, how are you going to date somebody who lives 3,000 miles away? It can be done. Is it worth it? You can have a long distance relationship, but it's different than it used to be, and in terms of proximity, and a little more challenging, even though you might find that person. The one thing that I will point out in terms of the way people are finding their mates now is, in some ways with this technology, courting, dating, is in some ways now similar to what it was like in, say, the 1600s, 1700s, 1800s even, where there wasn't a lot of people to choose from for a mate. So if you lived in a small town or a village, and you are female, there may not be that many eligible bachelors your age around. So what would you do? You would correspond with a friend or a family member at another village, maybe across, on the other side of the country, maybe not that far, but far on horseback, right? Carriage, and ask, are there any available bachelors there? And you'd get a correspondence back in a week or so, or 2 weeks later, in form of a letter. Yes, there are some people here. And then you would get an introduction by letter. So rather than it be instantaneous on email with a profile, it would be a letter, and through mutual friends, which could tell you about that person's background and the family, then you could find, a mate that way. And that was very common, very sort of Victorian. So it has been pointed out a few times that while we have the internet now, in some ways we have now gone back to a Victorian way of dating, if you will. So let's see if that's any better or not. The light's just terrible here. Anyway, so how you find someone attractive is it varies. And I think that's just from a social psychological standpoint, that's important. Not only for choosing a mate, also for business partners, even conducting business, from buying goods and services, those kinds of things. There has obviously been some probably more recently, I don't know if it's obvious is true or fair enough or not, but do we have, is it better to have an arranged marriage or sort of a more romantic kind of attraction that people get married? And I do want to point out, from a Western standpoint, where people, for the most part, are not in favor of quote unquote arranged marriages. It is interesting that parents will sort of guide their children to the group of potential mates. For example, church youth groups, the church you go to in general, as well as what college you send your son or daughter to. There used to be a kind of a joke that girls, females, young ladies would go to college and to get what degree? To get an MRS degree, a Mrs. degree, to find someone who's college educated that they could marry. So parents, maybe they didn't say or didn't claim to be pushing for an arranged marriage, but they certainly put their very eligible daughter in the area where she would find someone that kind of fit their mold, if you will, from maybe a private college or a local college or the college they went to. Maybe the parents met there, and certainly to look for someone who is college educated, if nothing else. So in some ways, we have had arranged marriages. In the Eastern cultures, it's really still to this day, very common to have arranged marriages. And one of the students posted in his initial comment, I believe it was Alan, very nice job, Alan, or whoever it was, that for the traditional Western, romantic marriage, things kind of start out hot and heavy, like, you see someone, you're attracted to them, and you really, physically, and then you find out they're kind of a nice person, and you find out they like you too. So that really makes it that much more sort of passionate and heavy. And you start dating, and time goes on, and you meet each other's friends, you meet each other's family, and people like what's going on. You get married, so you're really still young and vibrant and just absolutely just in love and holding hands and, being intimate all the time. And then that kind of wanes as years go on for various reasons. Not that the love wanes, I'm not suggesting that, but sort of the passion that you have when you're very young, as opposed to an arranged marriage, where rather than starting out like hot and heavy, if you will, and passionate and kisses and hugs and always holding each other, and sometimes we kid in church when young couples are there and they sit so close together that the wind couldn't get through. So with an arranged marriage, sometimes it's a little more getting to know you at first. Not necessarily cautious, but cordial, like being polite, and because someone picked this person for you, may or may not be physically attracted to them. Where on the other side, the Western, there's certainly one of the first things, or certainly the first 1, 2, or 3 things, is that physical attractiveness. With arranged marriages, you might think a person is attractive, but you may not. That's not what brought you together. What brought you together is your parents. So while Western starts out kind of fast, an arranged marriage may start out slow, and then after a while, where you're getting support from the bride's family and support from the groom's family, there's something very functional about that. So you start to grow closer together and get to know each other better and get to know each other more, and you start to build that very romantic love. And there are other extreme cases. I do know of a couple, one in particular, arranged marriage that was an absolute, well, I think probably a handful, but one in particular that was an absolute disaster. And there ended up in divorce, which was kind of a big no-no. And it's turned out well. Now, this happened years ago, and I'm familiar with one of the mates, if you will, and doing just fine. So interesting, what makes people attractive. So the good news for this is, without being manipulating and without lying and covering things up and being dishonest, we can frame ourselves in a way that is more attractive, by being conscious of our appearance. And I mean, not only our dress and those kind of things, but our posture, um, what kind of countenance, we walk around with. Do we have a sad look on our face? Um, and it could be the same situation. You can be the same situation and just respond to things differently. Even like, for instance, what are you looking for in a friend, or what are you looking for in a mate, or what are you looking for in a business partner? You can simply, a bad way to say, well, I don't want anybody who's going to do what the last guy did, and we didn't get along, and it just sets a negative tone, if you will. And I'll mention a little bit more about that. As the same situation where someone could have had a bad experience previously, let's say with a business partner. Well, I've learned a lot from the past, and I'm looking to move forward. Both are true, but just framed differently. There's someone I know that's posted on Facebook that always had great things to say about the business that the person was at and the company they work for and everything, until recently. And all of a sudden, which really looked good. Like if I was a hiring manager at a company and I saw the wonderful things this person was saying about the company, I would say, yeah, that person is going to esteem the company. That looks like a very good employee. If she ever come looking for a job here, or he ever come looking for a job here, I would probably want to hire that person. Then they're subsequently put down some very disparaging things about what happened there. And I'm like, well, that even if that's true, that's not the kind of person that I necessarily want to have work here. So, generalize that to looking for a mate. What are you looking for? Well, I don't want anybody that's going to, that kind of thing. Or I'm really looking for someone who's going to have fun, just different ways to frame it. And it does matter. And you can see a lot more from that on the videos. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. We've been here. I got a little late start, but because of my internet went down. But you are going to watch this on YouTube, so you won't even realize that. You'll get it right on time. But I do appreciate you checking in. Our Bible verse is, oh my goodness, let's see. How about, let's see, a hard one or a difficult one, or a hard one or a hard one, difficult one. Let's go with Romans 8:8. Romans 8:8. So if you message me that that's the Bible verse, you will certainly get your 2 points extra credit as I wrap up the grades, and sometimes that actually does help. So I hope I see you again and take some more classes with me, I hope. And I've enjoyed it, and I'll be sending some messages along the way as well. Thanks for tuning in. I will talk to you soon.